In this video, we will take a deep dive into the 50 unexplained mysteries that will send chills down your spine. Humanity has always been drawn to the shadows of the unknown, two stories that challenge our understanding of reality. From ancient prophecies to modern-day disappearances, the inexplicable holds a powerful, almost primal, grip on our collective imagination. The human mind, inherently wired to seek patterns and explanations, finds itself perpetually intrigued when faced with phenomena that defy conventional logic. This enduring fascination is not merely a quest for answers, but a confrontation with the limits of our own comprehension, pushing the boundaries of what we believe is possible. This video embarks on a journey through 50 such mysteries, cases where the veil between the known and the unknown remains stubbornly unlifted, leaving us to ponder the chilling possibilities. We will delve into historical enigmas, unsettling disappearances, cryptid encounters, bizarre phenomena, and perplexing crimes, each a testament to the enduring power of the unsolved. These are not just tales, they're unresolved questions that continue to haunt researchers, investigators, and the curious public alike, inviting us to confront the limits of our understanding and the unsettling reality that some secrets may never truly be revealed. This section explores cases where individuals, groups, or entire vessels have disappeared under baffling circumstances, often hinting at forces beyond human understanding or leaving behind deeply unsettling clues. The Mary Celeste, the ghost ship adrift. The American brigantine Mary Celeste was discovered on December 5, 1872. Drifting aimlessly in the Atlantic Ocean, approximately 400 nautical miles from the Azores. The vessel was found in remarkably seaworthy condition, its cargo of 1,700 barrels of alcohol largely intact, and personal belongings of the crew undisturbed. Yet Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife, their 2-year-old daughter, and the entire crew of 10 were gone. A lifeboat was conspicuously missing, and a sounding rod used to measure water in the hold was found on deck. The Mary Celeste remains unsolved because, despite extensive investigations, no evidence of foul play, such as piracy or mutiny, was ever established. Theories have ranged wildly, from pirate attacks and encounters with sea monsters to natural disasters. More grounded hypotheses suggest the crew may have abandoned the vessel due to fears of an imminent explosion caused by leaking alcohol fumes, or a mistaken belief that the ship was sinking due to faulty navigation equipment. The presence of the sounding rod on deck and a disassembled pump could support a theory of perceived foundering, where the crew believed the ship was in grave danger and evacuated prematurely. The definitive fate of the 10 individuals aboard remains elusive, leaving a profound void in maritime history. The Mary Celeste mystery transcends a simple disappearance. It delves into the psychology of panic under perceived threat. The fact that the ship was found seaworthy but abandoned is deeply unsettling. The presence of the sounding rod and a disassembled pump suggests the crew was actively assessing a perceived danger. If their assessment was flawed, perhaps a sudden temporary influx of water from a rogue wave or methane eruption, their decision to abandon ship in a lifeboat would be a tragic miscalculation. This highlights how perception, even if inaccurate, can lead to irreversible and fatal outcomes, creating a mystery where the true cause isn't a physical force, but a psychological one under extreme duress. This suggests that many maritime disappearances, particularly in volatile regions, might not be due to supernatural forces, but to rapid, terrifying natural phenomena combined with human misjudgment or panic. The horror isn't a monster, but the sudden, overwhelming terror that leads to a fatal error. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse Keepers, the Eilean Mur, Enigma. On December 15, 1900, a passing steamer noted that the Flannan Isles Lighthouse off the west coast of Scotland was not operational. A relief vessel, the Hesperus, was dispatched and arrived on December 26th, only to find no keepers present. The entrance gate to the compound and the main door of the lighthouse were found closed but unlocked, a detail that immediately raised questions. Inside, beds were unmade, the clock unwound, and a set of oilskins was found, suggesting one of the 3 keepers had left the lighthouse without proper attire for the severe weather. No sign of the 3 men. Principal keeper James Duquette, assistant keeper Thomas Marshall, and occasional keeper Donald MacArthur, was found anywhere on the island. Evidence at the western landing included missing mooring ropes, crane handles, bent iron railings, and a life buoy that had been stored 110 feet above sea level, which had disappeared completely. The mystery remains unsolved because no bodies were ever found, and the circumstances defy logical explanation. Theory suggests that a freak wave swept them off the rock, while they were trying to secure ropes at the landing stage. However, this directly contradicts lighthouse regulations that stipulated at least one keeper should always remain on duty inside the lighthouse. Other theories have proposed murder, perhaps fueled by isolation or drink, or more fantastical explanations involving sea serpents or foreign spies. Mysterious log entries, though possibly fictionalized over time, spoke of severe winds and keepers acting strangely, with one even reportedly crying. The Flannan Isles mystery is chilling because it involves a collective disappearance in an isolated, controlled environment. Lighthouse regulations stipulated that one keeper should always be on duty inside. For all three to vanish, it implies an event so sudden and catastrophic that it overwhelms standard safety protocols and human instinct. The bent railings and missing life buoy point to an extreme force, like a massive wave. However, the unmade beds and cold fire suggest a sudden, unplanned departure, not a leisurely one. This contradiction points to either an immediate, overwhelming natural disaster that caught them all off guard, or an internal conflict that escalated rapidly, leaving no survivors to tell the tale. This case exemplifies the horror of being utterly alone against an unknown force, whether natural or human, in a remote setting. The isolation itself becomes a character in the mystery, amplifying the sense of dread and vulnerability. The Jameson family deaths, the silent loading in October 2009, Bobby Jameson, his wife Sherilyn, and their 6-year-old daughter Madison disappeared from their hometown of Eufaula, Oklahoma. Days later, their abandoned truck was discovered in a remote location containing their malnourished dog, phones, IDs, and a substantial amount of cash, $32,000 to be precise. Security footage from their home captured a deeply unsettling scene, the couple loading their truck in an eerily silent and strange manner. Their remains were tragically discovered 4 years later in the remote area, but the true circumstances surrounding their disappearance and deaths remain shrouded in mystery. The case remains unsolved, because despite the discovery of the family's bodies, the eerily silent and strange manner of their last known actions, and the bizarre circumstances of their disappearance, leaving behind valuables and a running truck in a remote location, defy logical explanation. Multiple theories, including a fake death situation or a drug deal gone wrong, were explored by authorities, but ultimately unsubstantiated. The silence and strangeness of their final recorded moments suggest an unknown pressure or a profound shift in their mental state, leaving investigators and the public without a clear understanding of what transpired. The eerily silent and strange manner captured on security footage is a critical and deeply disturbing detail. It suggests a pre-existing state of distress, coercion, or an altered mental state that is not immediately apparent to observers. This is not a simple disappearance. It is a window into a final, disturbing act whose motive is completely opaque. The discovery of their remains provides a tragic end, but deepens the mystery. How they came to be in that state and why they behaved as they did, implying unknown pressures or a profound psychological shift. This case taps into the horror of human behavior that defies rational explanation, suggesting hidden pressures, unknown threats, or psychological breaks that lead to tragic, inexplicable outcomes, leaving observers with a profound sense of unease. The disappearance of Paula Jean Weldon, the vanishing hiker, on December 1, 1946. Paula Jean Weldon, a sophomore at Bennington College in Vermont, embarked on a hike along Vermont's Long Trail. She was reportedly seen by multiple individuals along the trail, including other hikers, yet she seemingly vanished without a trace. Her roommate reported her missing when Weldon failed to return to her room. The disappearance remains unsolved because, despite an extensive search, no trace of her was ever found. The investigation was significantly hampered by a critical systemic flaw of the time. Vermont did not have a statewide police force, which limited the coordination and resources available for the search. This lack of centralized law enforcement compounded the mystery, allowing the unforgiving wilderness to retain its secret. The fact that she was seen by multiple people along a known trail, then simply ceased to exist, suggests either an immediate, unforeseen accident or an abduction so swift and seamless it left no witnesses. Weldon's disappearance highlights the terrifying capacity of wilderness to simply absorb individuals, leaving no discernible trace. The fact that she was seen by multiple people along a known trail, then simply ceased to exist, suggests either an immediate, unforeseen accident or an abduction so swift and seamless it left no witnesses. The lack of a robust investigative infrastructure further compounded the mystery, allowing the unknown to persist and the environment to remain the primary suspect. This case feeds into the primal fear of being lost and consumed by nature, where human efforts to find answers are rendered futile by the sheer scale and indifference of the environment, turning a beautiful landscape into a place of quiet dread. The disappearance of Kenny Veach. The M Cave enigma. Kenny Veach, an outdoorsman and YouTuber known for his hiking videos, vanished in November 2014 near Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada. His disappearance was linked to his quest to find a mysterious cave, which he claimed was abnormally shaped like the letter M, and caused his body to vibrate intensely the closer he got to it. Veach had previously attempted to locate this unsettling cave, documenting his search in a video titled M Cave Hike. His girlfriend, Sharian, revealed that Veach had struggled with depression for years and had once stated that if he were to take his own life, "No one will ever find me." He reportedly left his cell phone near an abandoned mine shaft before his final hike, but took his 9mm handgun with him. His body and the handgun were never found, leaving his disappearance unsolved. Theories range from suicide, accidental death in the treacherous and vast Nevada desert terrain, to more outlandish claims involving military action or extraterrestrial encounters. Given the proximity to Area 51, the absence of a body or any definitive evidence leaves the fate of Kenny Veach a chilling enigma. Veach's disappearance is driven by the pursuit of an unexplained phenomenon, the M Cave, and its reported vibrational effect. This suggests a human compulsion to investigate the bizarre, even when it evokes profound fear. It's a blend of potential mental health struggles, the harsh, unforgiving desert environment, and the Area 51 conspiracy element creates a multi-layered mystery. The paranormal aspect is the cave itself, but the horror is the unknown fate of someone drawn to it, possibly to their doom. This case highlights the dangerous intersection of personal vulnerability, the irresistible allure of the unknown, and remote, unforgiving landscapes where the line between self-inflicted tragedy and external, inexplicable forces blurs, leaving a chilling question mark. The Yuba County Five. The bizarre roadside vanishing on February 24, 1978. 5 men, all with developmental disabilities, disappeared after attending a basketball game at the University of Chico, California. Their car, a Mercury Montego, was later found 70 miles away on a deserted mountain road, still running and with a full tank of gas, but with no sign of the men. 4 months later, 4 of the men's bodies were discovered miles away from the car under extremely bizarre circumstances. One body was found frozen in a trailer, while another was never located. The entire case has been described as feeling dreamlike and inexplicably wrong. The Yuba County 5 case remains profoundly unsolved, because the circumstances of their car abandonment and the subsequent discovery of bodies miles away in such bizarre conditions defy any logical explanation. There were no signs of foul play at the car, and the locations and conditions of the bodies raised more questions than answers. The fact that one man was never found further deepens the enigma. The Yuba County 5 case is profoundly unsettling because it lacks a coherent narrative. The men's developmental disabilities make their actions even harder to rationalize, suggesting they may have been disoriented or coerced. The car found running and with gas, yet the men miles away, implies a sudden, inexplicable departure from the vehicle. The description of the case feeling dreamlike and inexplicably wrong captures the essence of a mystery that offers no logical footholds, leaving one to wonder about a profound, disorienting event that led to their demise. This case taps into the horror of human behavior that defies rational explanation, suggesting hidden pressures, unknown threats, or psychological breaks that lead to tragic, inexplicable outcomes, leaving observers with a profound sense of unease. The USS Cyclops, the naval leviathan, lost. During World War I, in March 1918, the USS Cyclops, and the largest ship in the U.S. Navy, vanished without a trace. The 542-foot-long collier, transporting tons of manganese, departed Brazil en route to Baltimore and was never seen or heard from again. All 306 persons on board disappeared with the vessel. The USS Cyclops remains unsolved because, despite its size and military importance, no wreckage or definitive explanation for its disappearance has ever been found. Initial suspicions pointed to German U-boat attacks, but Germany denied any involvement. One persistent theory attributes its loss to the infamous Bermuda Triangle, a region notorious for unexplained disappearances of ships and aircraft. More than a century later, the ship's true fate continues to puzzle maritime historians and enthusiasts alike. The disappearance of a vessel as massive as the USS Cyclops without a trace, especially one belonging to a military with advanced communication for its time, is a stark reminder of the ocean's overwhelming power. Its vanishing in the Bermuda Triangle amplifies the mystery, connecting it to a region notorious for inexplicable events. This suggests that even the most formidable human creations can be rendered utterly insignificant by unknown forces. Whether they are extreme natural phenomena or something more esoteric, the sheer scale of the loss, coupled with the complete lack of wreckage, evokes a profound sense of cosmic indifference. USS Cyclops case underscores the terrifying vulnerability of humanity when confronted by the vast, unpredictable forces of nature. Or perhaps something beyond, in environments where evidence can be utterly erased. It transforms a maritime route into a zone of dread. Amelia Earhart, the aviator's final flight. Amelia Earhart, a trailblazing aviator and a symbol of courage, embarked on a daring attempt to circumnavigate the globe in 1937. On July 2, 1937, her plane, along with navigator Fred Noonan, vanished without a trace over the Pacific Ocean near Howland Island. Despite decades of extensive search efforts, including modern missions utilizing sonar and underwater drones, no definitive evidence of her plane or her fate has ever been found. Theories range from the most plausible, such as crashing and sinking due to fuel exhaustion or mechanical failure, to more speculative ideas like capture by the Japanese or survival on an uninhabited island. The complete absence of wreckage for such a prominent figure and a technologically advanced aircraft continues to defy resolution, making it one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history. Amelia Earhart's disappearance is a modern myth of human ambition swallowed by the vastness of the unknown. Unlike ancient vanishings, this occurred in an era of burgeoning technology, yet still defied solution. The absence of wreckage, despite advanced search methods, elevates the mystery beyond a simple accident. It highlights the terrifying reality that even with technological prowess, the sheer scale and unforgiving nature of certain environments can render human efforts futile, turning a pioneering journey into an enduring symbol of inexplicable loss. The enduring allure lies in the idea that someone so famous could simply cease to exist. This case serves as a powerful reminder that despite our technological advancements, there remain frontiers where the forces of nature, or perhaps something else entirely, can erase all traces, leaving only theories and a chilling void. The Princes in the Tower, the Royal Vanishing Act. In 1483, following the death of King Edward IV, his two young sons, Edward V and his younger brother Richard, Duke of York, were confined to the Tower of London. This act was ostensibly for their protection, but it quickly became a prelude to one of history's most enduring and chilling mysteries. The boys were never seen alive again outside the tower. The mystery remains unsolved because the exact circumstances of their disappearance and presumed deaths have never been definitively established. While skeletons believed to be theirs were found in the tower in 1647, this discovery confirmed their likely demise, but offered no clarity on who ordered their murder or how it was carried out. The lack of contemporary records, coupled with the political turmoil of the era and the clear motive for certain parties to eliminate the young heirs, has allowed centuries of speculation about various perpetrators, including their uncle, Richard the Sipper. The disappearance of the princes in the tower is a historical horror story rooted in power and betrayal, where the unsolved aspect is not just their fate, but the identity of the perpetrator and the exact method. The confinement within a fortress like the Tower of London makes their vanishing even more sinister, implying an inside job and a deliberate cover-up. The discovery of presumed remains centuries later offers a grim confirmation of death, but no clarity on the act, leaving a void filled by speculation about royal intrigue and cold-blooded murder. This case demonstrates how political machinations can create mysteries that defy resolution for centuries, perpetuating a dark historical shadow. This illustrates how human ambition and ruthlessness can create historical voids that no amount of subsequent discovery can fully illuminate, leaving a lingering sense of injustice and unanswered questions about the darkest corners of power. Al-Hakim, the erratic caliph's last ride, Al-Hakim Bayamor Allah, was a 10th–11th century ruler of the Fatimid dynasty, whose 25-year reign was marked by highly erratic and contradictory leadership. He would, for instance, implement generous policies to aid the poor, only to follow them with astonishingly harsh or bizarre edicts, such as forbidding women from leaving their homes or prohibiting cobblers from making women's footwear. In February 1021, Al-Hakim rode out of Cairo for one of his customary solitary night rides into the hills. He was never seen or heard from again, and his body was never found. The disappearance remains unsolved, because there is no concrete evidence to explain his fate. Theories range from assassination by disgruntled family members or political rivals, a plausible end for such an unpredictable ruler, to a deliberate, self-imposed vanishing act, perhaps driven by his known eccentricities or a profound spiritual shift. The complete absence of a body or any trace for such a powerful and visible figure is what makes his disappearance so profoundly mysterious. Al-Hakim's disappearance is made particularly unsettling by his documented erratic and contradictory leadership. This suggests a figure whose actions were already unpredictable, making his vanishing fit a pattern of the inexplicable. The lack of a body or any trace, despite his high status, points to either a highly organized assassination and disposal or a self-imposed, deliberate vanishing act by a ruler who defied norms. The mystery is amplified by the sheer power he wielded, making his complete erasure from history all the more profound. This case highlights how even figures of immense historical power can be swallowed by the unknown, leaving behind a legacy of bizarre behavior and an ultimate fate that remains a chilling blank, inviting endless speculation about conspiracy or self-willed oblivion. Jimmy Hoffa, the labor leader's last stand. James Riddle Hoffa, one of the most influential American labor leaders of the 20th century, disappeared on July 30, 1975, from a restaurant parking lot in Detroit, Michigan. Hoffa had a complex and controversial career, rising through the ranks of the powerful Teamsters Union to become its president in 1957. His tenure was marred by documented relationships with high-ranking mafia figures, and he was the target of multiple government investigations, leading to convictions for obstruction of justice and attempted bribery. He was released from prison in 1971 after President Richard Nixon commuted his sentence, and he immediately began efforts to regain control of the Teamsters. Hoffa was never heard from again after that July day, and his body has never been found. The disappearance remains unsolved because, despite widespread speculation that he was the victim of a mafia hit, conclusive evidence was never established. The case has been investigated extensively, but the perpetrators were so effective in disposing of his body that no trace has ever emerged. He was declared legally dead in 1982. Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance is a modern, true crime enigma deeply intertwined with the shadowy world of organized crime. The unsolved aspect is not just the lack of a body, but the public knowledge of his dangerous associations, which makes the absence of a definitive resolution particularly frustrating and suggestive of a powerful, untouchable force. The mystery lies in the complete success of the perpetrators in erasing all traces.
Right.
Despite extensive law enforcement efforts, this case exemplifies how real-world power dynamics can create impenetrable mysteries, where the horror is the implied ruthlessness and impunity of those involved. This demonstrates how certain criminal enterprises can operate with such efficiency and silence that they create enduring historical voids, leaving behind only the chilling certainty of foul play without the satisfaction of justice or full comprehension. D.B. Cooper. The Skyjackers escape on November 24, 1971. A man identifying himself as Dan Cooper hijacked Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 after it departed from Portland, Oregon. He calmly demanded $200,000 in ransom money and 4 parachutes. After receiving the money and parachutes in Seattle, he released the passengers and ordered the plane to fly towards Mexico City at a low altitude and slow speed. Somewhere over southwestern Washington, Cooper parachuted out of the plane into a stormy night. D.B. Cooper was never seen again, and neither he nor the vast majority of the ransom money has ever been located. The mystery remains unsolved because, despite an exhaustive multi-agency investigation spanning decades, law enforcement has never definitively identified him or found his body. D.B. Cooper's vanishing act is a unique blend of audacious crime and inexplicable disappearance. The fact that he successfully executed a mid-air escape and was never found, despite the significant ransom money and the technological capabilities of the era, makes it a compelling puzzle. The recovery of a small portion of the money only deepens the mystery, confirming the event but offering no clue to his fate. This case highlights the human capacity for cunning and the possibility of achieving a perfect, untraceable escape, turning a criminal act into a modern legend. This mystery challenges the notion of inevitable capture, suggesting that some individuals can truly disappear without a trace, leaving behind a tantalizing narrative of defiance and the ultimate unknown. It's a testament to the enduring human fascination with the idea of a truly successful vanishing. The Boy in the Box. Philadelphia's unidentified child in February 1957. The body of a young boy, estimated to be between 4 and 6 years old, was discovered inside a cardboard box in a wooded area off Susquehanna Road in Philadelphia. The child had been severely beaten and showed signs of prior surgeries, indicating a history of trauma. Despite extensive efforts by authorities, including matching his fingerprints against local hospital records and missing persons reports, the boy's identity remains unknown to this day. The case is considered one of the most haunting and unresolved child mysteries in history, primarily due to the complete lack of identification and the brutal circumstances of his death. For decades, the boy in the box has been a symbol of an innocent life lost, without a name or a clear narrative of what happened to him. The Boy in the Box mystery is profoundly disturbing because it represents a complete erasure of identity and a tragic failure to provide justice for a vulnerable victim. The fact that a child's body could be found with no identifying information, despite forensic efforts, speaks to a deliberate and effective attempt to conceal his past and the circumstances of his death. The box itself, a seemingly innocuous object, becomes a chilling symbol of containment and abandonment, amplifying the horror. This case highlights the terrifying possibility that individuals, especially the most vulnerable, can be utterly disconnected from their lives and histories, leaving behind only an enduring question mark that haunts the collective conscience. 3. Unexplained. Phenomena and events. When reality bends, this section delves into occurrences that defy scientific explanation, historical understanding, or conventional logic, suggesting forces or realities beyond our current grasp. The Voynich Manuscript. The undecipherable Codex. The Voynich Manuscript is an enigmatic book dating back to the 15th century. Discovered by rare book dealer Wilfred Voynich in 1912. Its pages are filled with undeciphered text written in an unknown script, accompanied by bizarre illustrations of plants that do not resemble any known species, astronomical charts that defy conventional understanding, and naked figures in strange poses. Despite the dedicated efforts of cryptographers, linguists, artificial intelligence, and scholars over more than a century, the manuscript's purpose and meaning remain an unsolved puzzle. It is unclear if the text represents a lost language, a complex code, or even elaborate gibberish. Modern attempts at cryptographic analysis and AI have made little progress. The book's unusual nature, its unique script, and the inexplicable illustrations have cemented its status as one of the most profound linguistic and historical mysteries. Defying all attempts at translation or comprehension, the Voynich Manuscript is fascinating because it represents a complete breakdown of human understanding in the face of an artifact. The inability to decipher its language or purpose, despite centuries of scholarly effort, implies either an incredibly sophisticated encryption, a lost form of communication, or perhaps something designed to be inherently unintelligible. The horror lies in the intellectual void it creates, a tangible object from the past that utterly resists interpretation, hinting at knowledge or a reality that remains forever beyond our grasp. It challenges our assumption that all human creations can eventually be understood, leaving a chilling sense of a secret perfectly kept. The Taos hum, the desert's mysterious drone. For years, some residents and visitors in the small city of Taos, New Mexico, have been annoyed and puzzled by a mysterious faint, low-frequency hum emanating from the desert air, described variously as a whir, hum, or buzz, and sometimes likened to a distant diesel engine idling. This persistent sound is oddly selective. Only about 2% of Taos residents report hearing it. The Taos hum remains unexplained, because no one has yet been able to definitively locate the sound's origin or identify its source. Theories proposed range from unusual acoustics, secret military operations, or mass hysteria. A survey revealed that those who claim to hear the sound actually perceive many different sounds, suggesting that the experiences might be subjective rather than an objective singular phenomenon. Despite ongoing investigations, the Taos hum continues to defy a conclusive scientific explanation, leaving a persistent auditory enigma in the quiet desert. The Taos hum is unsettling because it represents a sensory phenomenon that is both real to some and imperceptible to others, blurring the lines between objective reality and subjective experience. The inability to locate its source or definitively explain its nature creates a disquieting sense that something unseen is at play. Whether it's a hidden natural force, a secret human activity, or a manifestation of the mind, the horror here is subtle. The idea of an unseen, unheard presence that only a select few can perceive, hinting at a world beyond common sensory experience and potentially a form of mass psychological phenomenon. Spontaneous human combustion, the incinerated enigma. Spontaneous human combustion refers to rare and baffling cases where a human body is almost completely incinerated without an apparent external source of ignition, while the immediate surroundings remain largely untouched. One of the most prominent and puzzling examples is the case of Mary Reeser. On July 2, 1951, Reeser was discovered almost entirely incinerated in her St. Petersburg, Florida apartment. All that remained of her were a few bone fragments and her left foot. What makes this case particularly puzzling and contributes to its unexplained nature is that the rest of her apartment was largely undisturbed, with only a few nearby items affected by the intense heat. This inexplicable level of destruction, confined primarily to her body while leaving the surroundings mostly intact, led to the theory of spontaneous human combustion. While the FBI offered an alternative explanation, suggesting the fire was ignited by a cigarette Reeser was smoking with her body fat, and nightgown acting as fuel for the fire. This wick effect theory still struggles to fully account for the extreme and localized incineration without more widespread damage. Case remains a subject of discussion due to the unusual and localized nature of the incineration, defying a fully satisfactory conventional explanation. Spontaneous human combustion, exemplified by Mary Reeser's case, presents a deeply unsettling violation of natural laws. The idea that a body could be reduced to ash, while its immediate surroundings remain largely untouched, challenges fundamental principles of thermodynamics and fire behavior. This phenomenon evokes a primal fear of internal, uncontrollable destruction, suggesting a terrifying vulnerability inherent within the human form, or perhaps an unknown energy at play. The horror is the notion of a body consumed from within, leaving behind a scene that defies rational interpretation and hints at a terrifying, self-destructive mystery. The Dancing Plague of 1518, a city in uncontrollable motion in July 1518, in the city of Strasbourg, Alsace. A woman named Frau Trafia reportedly began dancing uncontrollably in the streets. For days on end, she did not stop dancing, seemingly without any apparent motive. Soon, others began to join her, and within a month, hundreds of people were caught up in what became a relentless, month-long dance. Historical records indicate that anywhere between 50 and 400 people participated. with dozens and possibly hundreds dying from exhaustion, heart attacks, or strokes after weeks of continuous movement. The dancing plague remains one of history's most bizarre and unexplained events, because the exact causes and reasons behind this mass phenomenon are still unknown. The most common theory attributes it to a manifestation of stress-induced mass hysteria or mass psychosis, perhaps exacerbated by the harsh conditions and anxieties of the time. Other competing theories include ergotism, a poisoning caused by fungi present in rye, or even religious explanations or demonic possession. Despite historical documentation, no definitive answer has been found, leaving the image of a town compelled to dance itself to death as a chilling historical enigma. The dancing plague is a terrifying historical anomaly that highlights the profound and unsettling power of the human mind, particularly when under extreme duress. The idea of hundreds of people compelled to dance to their deaths, seemingly against their will and without a clear external cause, evokes a deep-seated fear of losing control over one's own body and sanity. This phenomenon suggests that collective psychological states can manifest with devastating physical consequences, creating a horror that is internal yet publicly displayed. It points to the frightening potential for mass irrationality and the fragility of human autonomy in the face of overwhelming psychological or environmental pressures. The Hesteland Lights, Norway's ethereal glow. The Hesteland Valley in Norway has been the site of one of the most intriguing atmospheric phenomena for decades. Known as the Hesteland Lights, these unexplained lights, which vary in color and intensity, have been observed since the 1930s. They appear both during the day and at night, moving with incredible speed, hovering in place, or even seemingly disappearing and reappearing. The origin of the Hesteland Lights remains a mystery despite numerous studies, including Project Hesteland, an intensive scientific investigation initiated in 1983. While some theories propose natural explanations such as piezoelectricity from quartz-rich rocks, combustion of flammable gases, or even ball lightning, none have definitively accounted for all observed characteristics of the lights. The lights' unpredictable behavior and the lack of a consistent, replicable explanation continue to puzzle researchers, leaving them as a persistent, luminous enigma in the Norwegian sky. The Hesteland Lights are a captivating and unsettling natural phenomenon because they defy conventional scientific categorization, appearing as a persistent, unexplained visual anomaly in the environment. The lights' unpredictable movement, varying intensity, and long-term presence suggest either a complex interplay of unknown geological or atmospheric forces, or perhaps something entirely outside our current scientific framework. The horror is subtle. The idea of a natural world that can produce phenomena that are utterly alien and inexplicable, hinting at a reality that is far more complex and mysterious than we perceive and challenging our ability to fully understand our own planet. The Sailing Stones of Death Valley, rocks on the move, at the Racetrack Playa in Death Valley, California. A perplexing phenomenon has been observed for over a century. Large rocks, some weighing hundreds of pounds, appear to move across the flat desert floor without any human or animal intervention, leaving long trails behind them. Although no one had ever witnessed the stones actively moving until recently, their tracks clearly indicated their displacement. For decades, the precise reasons for their movement remained largely unexplained, leading to various theories. However, in 2014, scientists finally captured the movement using time-lapse photography, strongly suggesting that the sailing stones are the result of a perfect balance of ice, water, and light wind. Rain forms a shallow pond that freezes overnight, creating thin sheets of ice. When this ice thaws and breaks up, even light winds can push the ice sheets, which in turn push the embedded or accumulated rocks across the muddy surface. While a scientific explanation now exists, the phenomenon was a profound mystery for a long time, and its visual strangeness continues to captivate and puzzle observers, challenging immediate intuitive understanding. The sailing stones, despite their recent scientific explanation, remain a visually uncanny phenomenon because they demonstrate how seemingly inert objects can be propelled by forces that are imperceptible or misunderstood without careful observation. For centuries, the sight of these moving rocks, leaving their inexplicable trails, must have evoked a sense of a landscape imbued with a hidden, subtle agency, or even a playful, unseen hand. The horror in this context is the unsettling realization that our perception of a stable, predictable environment can be fundamentally challenged by natural processes that operate on scales or with mechanisms we do immediately grasp, making the familiar seem alien. Fairy circles, nature's mysterious patterns. In the arid grasslands of the Namib Desert, a puzzling phenomenon known as fairy circles mystifies observers. These are circular patches of land completely devoid of vegetation, surrounded by a ring of tall grass. Ranging from 6 to 30 feet in diameter, these circles appear to be evenly spaced and never overlap, creating vast patterned landscapes visible for miles. Similar circles were also discovered in Western Australia in 2014. Despite extensive study, including advanced computer modeling, the precise reason for their existence remains a natural wonder and an unsolved mystery. Each fairy circle can persist for up to 70 years. While scientific theories suggest a combination of factors, such as competition for scarce water resources among vegetation or the activity of subterranean termite colonies, none fully explain all aspects of their formation, persistence, and uniform distribution. Folklore, meanwhile, attributes them to the dancing grounds of fairies, elves, or even alien communications, suggesting portals to other dimensions. Fairy circles are deeply unsettling because they represent a natural phenomenon that defies simple explanation, creating patterns that suggest an unseen intelligence or a fundamental unknown rule of nature. The uniform, non-overlapping circularity evokes a sense of deliberate design. Challenging the randomness usually associated with natural processes, the horror is the subtle implication of a world operating on principles beyond our current understanding, where the very ground beneath our feet can manifest an inexplicable order hinting at hidden forces or even a living landscape with its own arcane logic. The miracle of the sun, the sky's divine display on October 13, 1917. In Fatima, Portugal, a crowd estimated at between 30,000 and 100,000 people gathered, drawn by a prophecy from 3 young shepherd children that the Virgin Mary would appear and perform a miracle. What transpired became known as the miracle of the sun. Witnesses, including government officials and journalists, claimed to have seen the sun appear to dance or zigzag in the sky, emitting radiant colors and seemingly plummeting towards the earth before returning to its normal position. Some reported feeling the ground dry instantly after a heavy rain. The miracle of the sun remains unexplained, because there is no conventional scientific consensus on what caused the observed solar activity. Believers attribute it to divine intervention, a true supernatural event. Skeptics, however, argue that the phenomena were likely mass hallucinations caused by prolonged staring directly at the sun, compounded by a strong desire to witness something supernatural. Other explanations have included optical illusions, meteorological phenomena, or even a localized atmospheric event. The sheer number of witnesses and the consistency of their accounts across diverse backgrounds make it difficult to dismiss entirely. Yet the lack of scientific replicability or clear physical evidence leaves it as a profound enigma. The miracle of the sun is deeply unsettling, because it represents a collective perceptual experience that defies rational explanation, blurring the lines between shared reality and mass hallucination. The idea that tens of thousands of people could witness a seemingly impossible event in the sky challenges our understanding of human perception and the influence of belief. The horror is the subtle implication that reality itself can be manipulated or perceived differently on a grand scale, suggesting a vulnerability to collective delusion or the existence of phenomena that can profoundly alter shared experience. Leaving a chilling question mark over the nature of truth. The Kentucky meat shower, raining flesh. On March 3, 1876, around 11 a.m., small pieces of gristly meat reportedly began raining down over Bath County, Kentucky. The bizarre event lasted for several minutes, with the mysterious flesh falling across an area approximately 100 yards long and 50 yards wide. The Kentucky meat shower remains unexplained because, despite samples of the meat being sent to the Newark Scientific Association, which concluded it was lung tissue, the definitive cause of the shower has never been confirmed. Some people at the time believed it was divine intervention, while others attributed it to vultures. who are known to vomit their food when startled or escaping predators. The most likely explanation is that a kettle of vultures got spooked and regurgitated their partially digested meal over the county. However, the exact circumstances that would lead to such a widespread and localized event, the sheer volume of meat, still leave lingering questions, preventing a definitive, universally accepted explanation. The Kentucky meat shower is a viscerally unsettling phenomenon because it represents a grotesque violation of natural order, the sky raining organic matter. The sheer absurdity and unpleasantness of the event evoke a primal discomfort, challenging our expectation of a predictable, safe environment. The horror is the unexpected intrusion of the repulsive into the mundane, suggesting a world where the bizarre can manifest without warning, leaving behind a lingering sense of disgust and a profound question about the boundaries of reality. Unexplained animal mutilations. The surgical precision since the 1960s, particularly in the American West, thousands of cases of unexplained animal mutilations have been reported, primarily involving cattle, but also sheep and horses. Ranchers have discovered their livestock dead, with specific organs, such as eyes, ears, udders, anuses, sex organs, and tongues removed with what appears to be surgical precision, often with laser-like incisions. Most disturbingly, the carcasses are frequently found completely drained of blood, and there is little to no blood discovered on or around the animals, suggesting advanced, unknown methods. These animal mutilations remain unsolved because conventional explanations, such as predation or natural causes, often fail to account for the precise excisions, the absence of blood, and the lack of tracks around the carcasses. Law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, have investigated, with some initially attributing them to common predators, a claim sharply disputed by experienced ranchers. Theories range from human cult activity to more outlandish explanations involving UFOs, secret government experiments, or unknown earthbound creatures, such as those reported at Skinwalker Ranch. The lack of forensic evidence and identifiable perpetrators leaves these cases as a persistent, gruesome enigma. Unexplained animal mutilations are profoundly disturbing because they suggest a methodical, almost ritualistic violation of living creatures that defies known human or animal behavior. The surgical precision and absence of blood imply a level of sophistication and intent that is deeply unsettling, hinting at forces beyond our current understanding. This phenomenon evokes a primal fear of unseen, malevolent entities operating with impunity, leaving behind a chilling tableau of violation. It suggests a world where the boundaries of the natural order can be transgressed by unknown perpetrators, leaving a lingering sense of vulnerability and dread, particularly for those whose livelihoods are tied to their livestock. Time slips. Glimpses of another era time. Slips refer to peculiar moments where individuals reportedly find themselves suddenly living in a different time altogether, experiencing past or future events as if physically present in another era. Unlike traditional time travel, these occurrences are described as accidental, spontaneous, and unexplainable, lasting anywhere from a few seconds to several minutes before the person returns to their original time. Accounts often include intense sensory details, seeing, hearing, and even smelling elements from the visited period. Famous examples include the Moberly-Jourdain incident at Versailles in 1901, where two English ladies claimed to have encountered 18th-century figures, and a man named Frank in Liverpool in the mid-1990s who reported suddenly finding himself in the 1950s. Time slips remain unexplained because there is no scientific mechanism or machine that triggers them, and they appear to happen spontaneously. Skeptics attribute these events to psychological phenomena such as déjà vu, memory glitches, hallucinations, or the subconscious picking up historical cues. Some theories also involve environmental factors, like electromagnetic fields or low-frequency sound waves influencing perception. However, believers argue that these consistent, vivid accounts hint at a deeper connection between time and human consciousness, or even glimpses into alternate dimensions. The subjective nature of these experiences makes them difficult to prove or study conclusively, leaving them as a fascinating and unsettling mystery. Time slips are unsettling because they challenge the fundamental linearity of time and the stability of our perceived reality. The idea that one could inadvertently step into another era, experiencing vivid sensory details of the past, evokes a profound sense of disorientation and vulnerability. This phenomenon suggests that time might not be a rigid progression, but a more fluid, layered construct where different periods can bleed into one another. The horror is the subtle implication that our reality is not as solid or predictable as we assume, and that the past might not be truly gone, potentially leading to a terrifying loss of self or temporal displacement. Doppelganger sightings. The malevolent double in fiction and mythology. A doppelganger is often portrayed as a ghostly or paranormal phenomenon. It's typically seen as a harbinger of bad luck or equated with an evil twin. These are instances where individuals reportedly encounter an exact non-biological double of themselves or someone they know. Historical accounts include John Donne's alleged sighting of his wife's doppelganger in Paris in 1612, coinciding with the stillbirth of their daughter, and Percy Bysshe Shelley's claims of meeting his own doppelganger shortly before his death by drowning. Another notable case involves Emily, a French teacher in Itzem-Babai-Sicherwool, whose doppelganger reportedly mimicked her actions and could be felt as a slight resistance when touched. Doppelganger sightings remain unexplained because their existence defies biological and physical laws. Scientific explanations often point to psychological phenomena such as heutoscopy. It's a symptom that can occur in conditions like schizophrenia and epilepsy. Other possibilities include misidentification, extreme coincidences of facial similarity, or the power of suggestion in folklore. However, the consistent, often unsettling nature of the accounts and their frequent association with misfortune or death leave a lingering sense of the uncanny that resists full rationalization. Doppelganger sightings are profoundly unsettling because they represent a direct assault on the unique identity of an individual, suggesting a duplication of self that is both impossible and deeply disturbing. The idea of encountering one's own double, often interpreted as an omen of death or misfortune, evokes a primal fear of existential displacement and the uncanny. This phenomenon suggests a reality where personal boundaries can be violated by an inexplicable mirror image, hinting at a hidden, perhaps malevolent aspect of existence. The horror is the loss of singular identity and the chilling implication that one's very being might not be as unique or secure as believed, leading to a profound sense of unease and a challenge to self-perception. The vanishing hitchhiker, the spectral passenger. The legend of the vanishing hitchhiker is a pervasive urban legend with roots tracing back centuries, possibly as far as the 1870s. In this classic tale, an unsuspecting motorist picks up a hitchhiker, often a young woman, who then mysteriously disappears from the moving or stopped vehicle, sometimes leaving behind a token, like a coat. The driver later uses information provided by the hitchhiker to find their family, only to learn that the person they picked up had died years earlier and that the address is their grave. Variations include hitchhikers who prophesy disaster or are identified as local divinities. These stories remain unexplained because, despite their widespread nature and consistent narrative elements across cultures, they are largely based on folklore and hearsay rather than verifiable events. Paranormal researchers and skeptics have investigated numerous alleged cases, often concluding that they are fabricated. Folklore creations retold in new settings. Explanations range from misperception, hallucination, or deliberate hoaxes. However, the enduring popularity and the chilling consistency of the narrative, particularly the detail of the passenger disappearing from a closed car, continue to fuel belief in a supernatural element, defying simple rationalization for many. The vanishing hitchhiker legend is unsettling because it introduces the supernatural into the mundane act of travel, transforming an ordinary journey into a chilling encounter with the spectral. The idea of a passenger simply ceasing to exist within a confined space evokes a profound sense of uncanny intrusion and the fragility of physical reality. This phenomenon suggests that the boundaries between life and death, or between the physical and the ethereal, can be unexpectedly porous, turning a common roadside into a potential gateway for the departed. The horror is the sudden, inexplicable breach of reality, leaving the witness with a profound sense of disbelief and a lingering question about the nature of existence beyond the veil. The Max Headroom signal hijacking. The broadcast intrusion on November 22, 1987. The broadcast of the 9 o'clock news on WGN-TV in Chicago was abruptly interrupted by a bizarre and unsettling video. For 30 seconds, viewers saw a person wearing a rubber mask resembling the artificial intelligence character Max Headroom, speaking in distorted audio and making strange, nonsensical statements. The broadcast was quickly restored, but 2 hours later, the hijacker reappeared on another Chicago station, WTTW, for a longer, even more disturbing segment. The identity of the person or persons behind the Max Headroom signal hijacking remains unsolved to this day. Despite extensive investigations by the FCC and law enforcement, no one has ever been caught or charged. The technical sophistication required to pull off such a stunt, especially in the 1980s, was considerable, suggesting a high level of expertise. The motive for the bizarre and seemingly random messages is also unknown. The lack of resolution, combined with the unsettling nature of the masked figure and garbled audio, has cemented this incident as one of the most infamous and bizarre unsolved crimes in broadcasting history. The Max Headroom signal hijacking is profoundly unsettling because it represents an inexplicable intrusion into a shared, controlled reality. The television broadcast, the sudden appearance of a masked, distorted figure, violates the perceived safety and predictability of media consumption, evoking a primal fear of unknown forces breaching established boundaries. This phenomenon suggests a hidden, possibly malevolent, intelligence capable of manipulating public information, or at least a highly skilled and anonymous individual with a deeply unsettling agenda. The horror is the unexpected disruption of the mundane, leaving a chilling question about who or what could so effortlessly commandeer the airwaves and why. The Baltic Sea anomaly. The underwater object in 2011, Swedish oceanographic team discovered a massive circular object resting on the northern floor of the Baltic Sea. Measuring 60 meters in diameter, the object's appearance, with its distinct circular shape and straight lines, led some to liken it to a science fiction spacecraft or a sunken UFO. The Baltic Sea anomaly remains unexplained, because its origins and purpose are unknown, and it defies simple geological explanations. While theories range from natural glacial deposits to ancient monuments, none have fully accounted for its unusual precision and metallic appearance. Adding to the mystery, divers and equipment near the anomaly have reportedly experienced strange phenomena, such as compasses spinning wildly and electronic gear malfunctioning. The difficulty of access and the lack of conclusive evidence from thorough scientific study have left the Baltic Sea anomaly as a captivating enigma of the deep, fueling speculation about its true nature. The Baltic Sea anomaly is deeply unsettling because it represents a massive, artificial-looking structure found in an unexpected and inaccessible location, challenging our understanding of both natural geological formations and historical human capabilities. Its resemblance to a science fiction spacecraft and its reported interference with electronic equipment evoke a sense of alien presence or unknown technology. The horror is the subtle implication that something vast and inexplicable lies hidden beneath the waves, suggesting a hidden history or an extraterrestrial presence that remains just beyond our grasp, leaving a chilling question mark in the silent depths. Horror, mysteries, and unexplained crimes. The Dark Side of Humanity, this section, explores criminal cases and historical events that remain unsolved, often characterized by extreme brutality, bizarre circumstances, or an enduring lack of identifiable perpetrators, leaving a chilling legacy. The identity of Jack the Ripper, London's unseen terror. In the foggy gaslit streets of London's Whitechapel district, an unidentified serial killer terrorized the community in 1888, nicknamed Jack the Ripper. This figure brutally murdered at least 5 women, known as the Canonical Five, though he claimed more victims. His gruesome crimes, characterized by extensive mutilations, plunged the city into widespread panic and sparked a massive, yet ultimately fruitless, police investigation. Over a century later, Jack the Ripper's identity remains shrouded in mystery, making the case a focal point for historians, criminologists, and true crime enthusiasts. Despite numerous suspects, including a doctor, a member of royalty, and even a woman, and the application of modern forensic advances like DNA testing, no one has ever been definitively identified as the killer. The sheer brutality of the crimes, coupled with the perpetrator's complete evasion of justice, has allowed the legend of Jack the Ripper to influence countless books, films, and urban legends. embodying the horror of an unseen, elusive evil. The identity of Jack the Ripper is a profound horror mystery, because it represents the ultimate failure of justice against a malevolent, unseen force. The killer's ability to operate with such brutality and then completely disappear into the anonymity of Victorian London evokes a primal fear of the unknown predator. The enduring mystery, despite centuries of investigation, suggests a chilling perfection in his evasion, leaving behind a void that continues to haunt the collective imagination. The horror is the idea that such a monstrous individual could simply cease to exist, leaving only a legacy of terror and an unanswerable question about the face of pure evil. The Zodiac Killer, California's cryptic murderer from 1968 to the early 1970s. A serial killer known as Zodiac terrorized Northern California, claiming at least 5 confirmed victims, though he boasted of killing 37. The killer gained infamy not just for his brutal attacks, which began with the shooting deaths of 2 teenagers in December 1968, but for his audacious taunting of the police and media. He sent cryptic coded letters to local newspapers, demanding their publication and signing them with his distinctive cross-circle symbol. One decoded letter chillingly stated, "I like killing people because IT is so much fun." Despite extensive investigations, numerous suspects, and the wealth of evidence left behind by the killer, including coded letters, anonymous phone calls, and survivor accounts, the Zodiac Killer's identity remains unsolved. The police were never able to apprehend him, allowing him to slip into history and myth. The case's enduring nature is a testament to the killer's cunning and the frustrating elusiveness of true evil. Leaving a chilling void in criminal history, the Zodiac Killer case is a terrifying horror mystery because it involves a perpetrator who actively engaged with the public and authorities, yet remained utterly anonymous. The killer's taunting letters and ciphers transform the crimes into a perverse game, where the horror is the intellectual and psychological torment inflicted by an unseen antagonist. This case highlights the chilling reality that some individuals can operate with extreme malevolence and then simply disappear, leaving behind only a trail of terror and an enduring question about their identity and motives. The unresolved nature of the Zodiac case leaves a lingering sense of vulnerability to an unseen, unpunished evil. The Hinterkaifeck murders, the farmhouse of dread. In March 1922, a family of 6, Andreas and Chiselia Gruber, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, her 2 children, Chiselia and Joseph, and their new maid, Maria Baumgartner, were brutally murdered on their remote farm in Hinterkaifeck, Germany. The chilling aspect of this crime is not just its brutality, but the strange events that preceded it. The family had reported hearing footsteps in the attic and discovering footprints in the snow that led to the house, but never away, suggesting an unseen presence lurking on their property. The Hinterkaifeck murders remain unsolved because the killer was never identified. The bizarre pre-murder events, including the phantom footsteps and inexplicable footprints, add a deeply unsettling, almost supernatural layer to the crime, suggesting a stalker who defied logic. The fact that the murderer seemingly lived in the house for days after the killings, feeding the livestock and even eating meals, before disappearing without a trace, makes the case even more disturbing. The lack of a clear motive or perpetrator, despite extensive investigation, has left this isolated farmhouse as a chilling monument to an unfathomable act of evil. The Hinterkaifeck murders are a profound horror mystery because they combine extreme violence with deeply unsettling, almost supernatural, preceding events. The reports of phantom footsteps and inexplicable footprints leading to the house, but not away, suggest an unseen, persistent malevolence, transforming the family's home into a site of creeping dread. The horror is the idea of an unseen stalker who defies detection, culminating in a brutal act that leaves no identifiable perpetrator. This case highlights the terrifying vulnerability of isolation and the chilling possibility of an evil that can manifest and disappear without leaving a discernible trace, leaving behind only a scene of unfathomable violence. The Villisca Axe murders, the ritualistic slaughter on a summer night in June 1912. In the quiet town of Villisca, Iowa, 8 people, Josiah and Sarah Moore, their 4 children, 2 visiting friends, were brutally slaughtered in their sleep with an axe. The scene discovered by investigators was deeply disturbing and suggested a ritualistic element. The killer had covered the victims' faces with bedclothes hung sheets over all the mirrors in the house and seemingly lingered in the house after the murders were committed. The Villisca Axe murders remain unsolved because, despite a massive investigation and numerous suspects, the killer was never identified. The precise, almost theatrical arrangement of the crime scene, the covered faces, the draped mirrors, suggest a motive beyond simple robbery or rage, hinting at a darker, more symbolic purpose that has never been understood. The fact that the perpetrator was able to commit such a heinous act against 8 individuals and then disappear without a trace has left the case as a chilling example of an elusive. The Villisca Axe murders are a chilling horror mystery because they involve a brutal act of violence executed with a disturbing, almost ritualistic precision. The killer's actions of covering victims' faces and draping mirrors suggest a symbolic or psychological component that defies rational understanding, transforming a crime scene into a tableau of profound desecration. The horror is the idea of a perpetrator driven by an unknown, possibly perverse, motive who could commit such an act, and then simply vanish, leaving behind only the unsettling silence of an unfathomable evil. This case highlights the terrifying reality of a hidden malevolence that can strike with devastating impact and then disappear without leaving a discernible trace. The Axeman of New Orleans, the jazz-loving killer. Between May 1918 and October 1919, New Orleans was terrorized by a serial attacker known as the Axeman. This mysterious figure would break into homes and brutally attack his victims, typically using an axe found at the victims' residences. His victims spanned various racial backgrounds and social statuses, making a clear motive or pattern difficult to discern. The Axeman famously added a bizarre twist to his reign of terror. He sent a letter to local newspapers claiming he was a demon and stated that he would spare anyone who played jazz music in their homes on a specific night. That night, dance halls were packed and jazz music filled the city streets. The Axeman of New Orleans remains unsolved because, despite the terror he inflicted and the unique nature of his crimes, his identity was never discovered. The case is described as feeling like something out of Southern Gothic folklore due to its eerie combination of brutal violence, an elusive perpetrator, and the bizarre jazz-related ultimatum. The lack of a clear motive, the varied victimology, and the killer's complete disappearance after his final attack have left the Axeman as a chilling, almost mythical figure in American true crime history. The Axeman of New Orleans is a uniquely unsettling horror mystery because it combines brutal violence with a bizarre, almost theatrical element: the killer's demand for jazz music. This twist transforms the crimes from mere acts of violence into a perverse public performance, where the horror is the chilling audacity of the perpetrator and the unsettling idea of a killer dictating the city's soundtrack. This case highlights how a criminal can operate with such an idiosyncratic and elusive nature that they become a figure of dark folklore, leaving behind a legacy of terror and an unanswerable question about the mind behind the madness. Room 1046. The Locked Room Ghost Story in January 1935. A man using the alias Roland T. Owen checked into room 1046 of the President Hotel in Kansas City, Missouri. His behavior was immediately strange. He was reclusive, refused maid service, and received cryptic phone calls. Days later, he was found mortally wounded in his locked room, having been brutally beaten and stabbed. The room showed no signs of forced entry or struggle, and the only other person seen near the room was a shadowy visitor. The Room 1046 mystery remains unsolved because of the total confusion about his identity and the baffling circumstances of his death. Despite extensive efforts, Roland T. Owen's true identity was never confirmed, and his family was only located after a national appeal. The locked room aspect, combined with the cryptic phone calls and shadowy visitors, makes the case feel like a locked room ghost story. The lack of a clear motive, the unknown identity of the victim, and the seemingly impossible nature of the crime within a sealed environment have left this case as one of the most perplexing and unsettling mysteries in true crime history. The Room 1046 mystery is profoundly unsettling because it presents a classic locked room enigma infused with elements of psychological horror. The victim's strange behavior, the cryptic phone calls, shadowy visitors, and his brutal death within a seemingly impenetrable space create a narrative that defies rational explanation. The horror is the implied presence of an unseen, possibly supernatural force or an incredibly cunning human perpetrator who could commit such a crime without leaving a trace. This case highlights the terrifying possibility of a reality where the impossible occurs, leaving behind a scene of violence that utterly confounds conventional understanding and leaves a haunting question about the boundaries of human capability or the presence of something otherworldly. The Circleville letters, the poison pen's reign. From the late 1970s through the mid-1990s, the small town of Circleville, Ohio, was terrorized by a series of anonymous, threatening poison pen letters. The letters, often signed the Circleville writer, accused residents of infidelity, crimes, and other secrets, initially targeting school bus driver Mary Gillespie for an alleged affair. The harassment escalated, with signs posted along Mary's bus route making false claims about her daughter. In 1977, Mary's husband, Ron Gillespie, received a phone call from the letter writer and went out to confront him, taking his weapon. Ron was later found dead in his truck after crashing into a tree with a single bullet fired from his gun. The Circleville letters mystery remains unsolved because, despite a man named Paul Freshour being convicted of attempted murder related to a booby-trapped gun intended for Mary Gillespie, the letters continued to arrive even while Freshour was imprisoned. This suggested either Freshour was innocent of writing the letters, or he had an accomplice, or a copycat had emerged. Freshour maintained his innocence until his death in 2012. The true identity and motive of the original Circleville writer have never been definitively established, leaving a chilling legacy of anonymous terror and unresolved justice. The Circleville letters are a chilling horror mystery because they represent a sustained, anonymous, psychological torment that escalated to fatal consequences. The fact that the letters continued even after a suspect was imprisoned creates a profound sense of an unseen, elusive perpetrator who could operate with impunity, mocking the justice system. The horror is the idea of a hidden individual who knows intimate secrets and wields them as weapons, turning a small town into a stage for their malicious game. This case highlights the terrifying power of anonymity and the lasting psychological scars left by an unknown tormentor. The Setagaya family murders. The killer, who lingered in December 2000, 4 members of the Miyazawa family, Mikio, Yasuko, and their children Nina and Rei, were brutally murdered in their home in Setagaya, Tokyo. The children's grandmother discovered their bodies. The most disturbing aspect of this crime is that the killer reportedly remained in the house for several hours after committing the murders. During this time, the perpetrator ate ice cream, used the victim's computer, and even left behind extensive DNA evidence, including fingerprints and blood. Despite the wealth of forensic evidence left at the scene, the identity of the murderer remains unknown, and the case is unsolved. The killer's bizarre behavior after the murders, lingering in the home, using the family's belongings, defies conventional criminal psychology and suggests an unusual and perhaps deeply disturbed mindset, or a deliberate attempt to mislead investigators. The lack of a clear motive and the failure to identify the perpetrator, despite the DNA, have left this brutal crime as a haunting enigma in Japanese criminal history. The Setagaya family murders are a deeply unsettling horror mystery because the perpetrator's actions after the crime, lingering eating using the computer, suggest a chilling level of detachment or a perverse sense of intimacy with the victims. This behavior transforms the crime from a simple act of violence into a prolonged psychological violation of the home and its inhabitants, even in death. The horror is the idea of a killer who not only takes lives, but then desecrates the sanctity of the domestic space, leaving behind a scene that is both brutal and profoundly bizarre. This case highlights the terrifying reality of a malevolence that operates with an unfathomable and disturbing internal logic. The Lady of the Dunes. Provincetown's unidentified victim on July 26, 1974. The body of an unidentified woman was discovered at Race Point Beach in Provincetown, Massachusetts. The woman had been deceased for up to 3 weeks, was almost decapitated, and her hands were missing. The removal of her hands was a deliberate act, likely intended to prevent identification through fingerprints. The Lady of the Dunes mystery remains unsolved because, Despite extensive efforts to identify her based on her distinctive dental work and other clues, her identity could not be determined. Removal of her hands and the near decapitation point to a perpetrator who sought to make identification impossible and the crime particularly brutal. For decades, she remained nameless, one of the most mysterious and chilling unsolved deaths in the country. While DNA evidence has recently provided a potential identification, the circumstances of her death and the identity of her killer remain unknown, leaving the core mystery unresolved. The Lady of the Dunes case is a chilling horror mystery because it represents a deliberate and successful attempt to erase a victim's identity, leaving behind a body that is both brutally violated and utterly nameless. The removal of her hands and the near decapitation suggest a perpetrator driven by a profound desire for anonymity or a perverse symbolism. The horror is the idea of a life so completely severed from its past that it becomes a permanent enigma, haunting the landscape where it was found. This case highlights the terrifying capacity for human cruelty to not only end a life, but to attempt to erase its very existence from the world. Who put Bella in the wych elm? The tree's ghastly secret. In the spring of 1943, during World War II, 4 local boys poaching in Hagley Wood, Worcestershire, England, made a gruesome discovery: a human skull and bones inside a hollow wych elm tree. When police investigated, they found a mostly complete skeleton of a woman, along with fragments of clothing and jewelry. Forensic analysis determined she had been in the tree for at least 18 months and likely died of asphyxiation. It was also believed her body must have been placed in the tree while still warm, as it would not have fit once rigor mortis set in. The mystery remains unsolved because the woman was never identified and her killer was never found. The case gained notoriety in 1944 when mysterious graffiti began appearing in Birmingham, asking who put Bella down the wych elm. Hagley Wood, similar graffiti has continued to appear for decades, fueling speculation. Theories about Bella's identity and the motive range from her being a spy, a victim of witchcraft or occult rituals, or a senseless murder by someone familiar with the hollow tree. The bizarre nature of the concealment and the enduring anonymity of the victim have made this a chilling and persistent enigma,